好，同学们，我们为了来的，我们是中国现在 with your gang of two. Nan Su, who is a senior investigative reporter for Epoch Times, and also Michael Olson. Hey, that's me. And I once dreamed in Chinese of going to China and being part of the Great Awakening, but was dissuaded from doing so by the chairman himself, Mao Zedong. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have aircraft carriers running amok in the Pacific that are not ours. And this is a very interesting development. Nansu, take it away.
Yes, there's two aircraft carrier of Chinese Navy this week. They are gathering around the region near Minami Torishima. That's one of the Japanese island of Japanese sovereignty, approximately located that's somewhere between Okinawa and Guam, in the middle, somewhere between the Okinawa and Guam.
And that's
That
interesting stuff because that's the second island chain, correct?
Yeah, that's the second island chain. They break that, and it's more interesting how they get there. So one of the well, that's the Shandong and Liaoning. That's the two
Yeah,
aircraft carriers.
these are the two older carriers. So they're
That's right.
not the
These are the
they
two.
left the Fujian behind.
Yep. So now one of them went through Miyako Strait, that's on the southern part of China, which is also on the north side of Taiwan. They went through that strait, Miyako Strait, and went to get to Minami Torishima. And another one went through Basi Strait, that's between Taiwan and the Philippines, which is on the southern part
Southern part of the
of Taiwan. Basically one went through northern part of China, pretty much at the southern tip of Japan, and one went through the strait between that's dividing Taiwan and the Philippines. So they got Taiwan pretty much enclosed in the loop, and then they meet at the Miami Torishima, that's the Japanese island between Guam and Okinawa, and they're been there for a week now. They're doing they're doing their drill wherever they're collecting the information, intelligence, wherever.
practicing. They're practicing too.
Yeah, they're practicing. I don't know.
Whatever you do, yeah. Well,
Yeah, whatever they do. So that's the story. And then now keep in mind last month, which part of it, the action actually answer a question. When it just last month, Japanese government had a huge drill, and the drill is like to evacuate 120,000 Japanese residents that live on Okinawa, and they are
whoa.
yeah, they have a big drill last month, uh, in Japan. So they actually pre-assign different districts of the residents that living on Okinawa, to say if the situation happen, when you're going to go. So it's not only about the residents that live on Okinawa, it's also on the other end, on the receiving end, because many different cities in the central part of Japan, they are preparing to receive all these people.
People.
Yeah, so it's a huge, drill. They trying to think about the possible difficulties, how, when, how, and these people are going to be relocated and replaced to different part of Japan. So it's a huge exercise. People need to wake up when they're not doing this for nothing, for
That's
no
right.
reason.
Well, Okinawa. and the second island chain that it's the key of, very significant strategically speaking, as it was in World War II.
Yep.
When we look back at the end of World War II in the Pacific, it was Okinawa that was the key to the whole campaign. If we can take Okinawa, we can control almost everything. And it cost a lot. And now Okinawa is in the focus again because
Yep.
it's the key of the second island chain,
Yeah, U.S. military, a big base over there,
right?
right? Of course, the Japanese government, they're not going to relocate U.S. military base and, and in Okinawa, right?
Right. So we have two carriers running about the Pacific practicing being carriers, carrier task groups. So they're steaming around practicing. That means they're launching and recovering aircraft, which is no small feat, having been on an aircraft carrier and in those waters and watching. It's amazing to see what it takes to launch and recover airplanes. So that, I suspect, is a big part of what the Chinese carriers are doing, simply practicing and learning how to work together with another carrier and what that means and how to coordinate all of that. And
Yep.
and I'm sure we're watching, see how they do. But what it means, what it really means, is that China is thinking of strategic objectives far from their shores.
That's right. Now, also at the same time, you think, that's how this Middle East situation come to play, right? We really have three aircraft carrier. That's Truman and Carl Vinson, as well as Nimitz. That all limits is on its way to Middle East. I'm not sure if we get there yet, but Truman, it's I think it's in the Mediterranean Sea, and we have Carl Vinson. That's right at the Gulf,
Right.
uh, right. So
In the Gulf of Oman,
Persian
I think,
Gulf,
yeah.
right? Persian Gulf.
Yeah,
So all three of them. So you can see, the U.S. military defense line is dragging really super thin,
right.
and that's what's happening right now,
And
and hopefully,
that was always the Chinese objective, was it not?
yeah, it's true.
Spread the US thin.
Yeah,
Encourage Vladimir Putin to invade the Ukraine. Encourage the mullahs of Iran to set their running dogs free, the Houthis, the all of them. And that has been what's been occupying our attention. Now, Iran is in dire straits.
yeah. I think that something need to be done, which is necessary. Think about this. What if we are, if now? I don't think this year the Beijing is ready to invade Taiwan this year. Uh, but what if in the future, if we are facing the challenge of a major war in the Western Pacific, while at the same time Middle East,
And
have
Russia
another
and Europe,
explosion,
yeah,
right?
because because if we don't stop Putin in Ukraine, he's not going to stop in the Ukraine. He's going to keep going.
Now, keep in mind, a few months ago, we talked about there's a widespread discussion openly taking place in China's that many of Chinese, all these pro-communist think tank, they're talking about the best timing for China to invade Taiwan. It's if there are three wars going around. One is between Russia and out in Ukraine. Another one is in the Middle East between Israel and Iran, and the third one is between North and South Korea. Then it will be the perfect time for China to invade Taiwan. That's what they have been openly talking about. So now we already have two.
Yeah.
And
So
with that two going on, we are sending three aircraft carrier to Middle East. So think about this. If say there is another one between North Korea and South Korea, then we are looking at the
spreading,
kind of their narrative is coming, right?
right. So lots to watch out for. But in the interim, China has its aircraft carriers out exercising because their target is much greater than just Taiwan when it gets right down to it. Their target is really the Western Pacific.
Well, the target is the entire South China Sea, right? China already openly claimed 90% of South China Sea as the sovereignty of CCP. Um, I,
I think,
I
well,
mean,
they've already declared that everything is theirs.
yeah.
We are the Middle Kingdom. All that surrounds us owes us fealty. And there it is. Well, just to follow up with you, I have an article in from the Epoch Times by our friend Antonio Graceffo, and the title is U.S. China competition in Micronesia heats up. Now, what is the Nesias? There's Micronesia, Polynesia, and Melanesia. So, you want to handle that one, Don Su?
That's like more like a Southern Pacific, right?
Yes, all of these islands, well, there are three different groups: Micronesia, Polynesia, and Melanesia. Micronesia, little islands, lots of little islands. And that's going to be the key of our focus right now. But the other Nesias, Polynesia, mini islands. And Melanesia, when you hear the word melanin is skin color. So when you hear Melanesia islands, like Vanuatu and New Guinea, those are people with really dark skin live there. I think they're
Well, those basically those are the islands and countries between South China Sea and Australia.
yes,
Yeah, so this is the next thing. Well, once they, China, it's got a whole thing going on, whole scenario. They're really planning long run. Once
long range planning.
yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, once they control, they're thinking once can put the whole South China Sea under their control, then the next target will be Australia.
Or even better, South America. So,
Well, that's another thing they're doing. The Belt and Roads project. The Brazil, and few other countries, and of course the Panama Canal thing and good
yeah.
things. We're making effort try to take them back. So they are really global. It's really a global expansion. The CCP.
And all
Uh,
of this really happened without us paying any attention.
Well, we because we are being in such a pendulum. We are
Panda
all thinking
love.
of
Well,
we're
let's pick up this article here really quickly from Graceffo. In late May, a state-linked Chinese company broke ground on the renovation of a World War II era airstrip in Wilia, a remote atoll about 400 miles south of Guam. So it's kind of like surrounding Guam with these little bases, right?
hmm
The project is part of Beijing's Southern Link strategy, which aims to connect Asia to South America through the Pacific hubs designed for transit, logistics, and influence projection. Boy, just like Japan did before World War II. Remember how Japan had these bases scattered throughout this entire South Pacific and Central Pacific area? and they used them for strategic transit, logistics, and influence projection. We own this country. Walia is part of a state of Yap in the Federated States of Micronesia, a sovereign Pacific island nation composed of 4 states spread across nearly 4 million square miles of ocean. I think that would make it the world's biggest country. Not sure. At least the wettest one. Although it is small in population, its location places it squarely within the second island chain, a region of immense significance to the United States. Now, through the Compact of Free Association, the U.S. maintains exclusive military access and strategic denial rights in the Federation, allowing American forces to operate freely while barring foreign powers, such as China, from gaining a military foothold. In return, the United States provide the Federation with economic assistance, access to domestic programs, and blah blah blah. In the Federation, the CCP has expanded its political and economic footprint throughout infrastructure projects such as roads, government buildings, and the renovation of Walia Airstrip. These developments align with the CCP's military-civil fusion doctrine, which embeds dual-use capabilities into civilian infrastructure. Concerns over these tactics are not merely theoretical. In 2023, the president of the Federation at the time, David Panuelo, publicly accused the CCP of bribing Micronesia officials and revealed that Chinese operatives had threatened his personal safety. So, and you can see that in the Solomon Islands, you can see it in Kiribati, you can see it in Vanuatu. I watched it happen in
And
Vanuatu
Fiji, and
and
Fiji.
Fiji. So
Yeah.
I watched how it worked in Vanuatu, how they came into the country with a suitcase full of $1 million or something, U.S. dollars, not yuan, U.S. dollars. I'm sure it was, and they would give it to whoever's running the show at the time. And whoever's running the show made the decision to welcome them in and buy into the Belt and Road Project. And so the Chinese came in and built this humongous civic center in Vanuatu. Uh, and it was the ugliest thing I've ever seen. And it sat there like a big concrete turd for years before anybody used it. But it obligated Vanuatu to pay the bill. And if they don't pay the bill, China gets something like fishing rights.
Yeah, the fishing rights, and also, they can use their ports. Maybe they will continuously accepting. They will force this country accepting more like investments because they say, oh, we'll give you something else that you're going to make money from the other projects, so that you will be able to repay your debt, right? So they will basically say, hey, maybe we'll make some investment on some of the ports in your country. So that's how they're going to come in, and then this country will have to sign some deals to allow China and maybe their military warship to come in to use these ports, and things like that. There's a lot of things they can do right now in these small countries. You keep in mind, we used to we in the past couple decades, we actually withdraw our embassy from many of these
Yeah.
countries. We kind of like say, hey, they're not important, but while at the same time, uh, Beijing's regime, they're thoughtfully and carefully planned, and to occupy all these places evacuated by the U.S. government's existence and influence.
You know what? It's really, Nancy, it's really a great demonstration or example of how central planning can really plan.
Right.
I mean, they can really lay down the plans. They can sit there and look way off into the future. And whereas we're on the West operating on the quarter system. So
Well,
every
it's
quarter
true
we have
because
to,
the election take place every 4 years.
4 years, yeah.
And then our political leaders think ahead, what the hell? It's not going to be under my watch, so they don't even care. But now it all
Rushing
come to
back,
play
yeah.
together, so it's all around us.
So the previous administration did not seem to care or did not seem to be paying attention um, until kind of toward the end of its administration. And they realized, holy smokes, the Chinese have been hard at work throughout the Central Pacific, throughout the Western Pacific. Though they don't have the arms at the moment, they have the strategy, they have the Belt and Road, they have debt that they can load up these little countries with and simply take them over. So they've been planning. We have not seemed to be planning.
Yeah, we have been really in this wishful thinking, right?
Panda
Wishful
love.
thinking. Pendula of China will become a part of a democratic world. Uh, and then still, people are wishful thinking China will change overnight by some of these, you know, uh, a bizarre force that they all of a sudden, that we don't have to worry about them anymore. I think there's still a lot of wishful thinking. Then the people put out there. We need to be careful. We just need to be focused on the threat. Because there's a lot of young American life are going to lost. They're going to pay their blood. A lot of the American families are going to lost their loved ones if there is a war that take place in the Western Pacific while American not ready. If we are not ready, see, this is the first thing we always have to keep in our mind. If we are not ready, and if there's all of a sudden there's a war that breaks out in the Western Pacific, many of young Americans, some of them are maybe from our town, just
Yes. Across the
maybe
street.
from your neighborhood, they will never come back. So this is something we always have to keep in mind right now. This is what's really facing us.
Well, kind of frightening. And it's so much like the Pacific in 1941. It's
It's true.
just almost exactly the same, except that instead of Japan, it's China. And China's much bigger and much meaner. So that's the story. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, this is China Now. Michael Olson with Nan Su and you. When we come back, Nan Su has some interesting stories about trade and rare earths and all kinds of fun things like that. So do stay tuned for China Now. We will be right back.
Get hooked up with affordable cannabis at your locally owned Hook Outlet, where everybody above the age of 21 can participate in the Hook's loyalty program. Each purchase earns you 2% store credit on your next purchase. Get hooked up with the best cannabis at affordable prices at the Hook Outlet in Capitola and Watsonville, or order online at hookoutlet.com. Get hooked up at the Hook.
Hi, folks. Warren Knox here of Knox Roofing. I've been called a lot of things in my day. Just listening to the many commercials over the years, I guess you have a right to call me some names. But I do have some names to share with you that truly are important and distinguished. Names like GAF's Master Elite Contractor, Owens Corning Preferred Contractor, Duralast's Elite Contractor, Better Business Bureau's accredited A+ rating, Authorized Traeger Dealer, just to name a few. So what do all these titles have to do with you? It means when you hire Knox Roofing, you will be hiring the best in the roofing business. quality workmanship, and products with guarantees you can truly count on. So when it comes to your home and its roof, call Knox Roofing. You won't be disappointed. In fact, you just might call a name like Great Company. Okay, call Knox Roofing at 461-0634 anytime. Thanks, folks.
Save money on airfare to anywhere. Low Cost Air is the discount supermarket for all domestic and foreign airlines. A funny thing is going to happen when you call Low Cost Air. You're going to talk to a human being within 60 seconds. Save money on airfare to anywhere. Call Low Cost Air to compare at 800-704-1662. 800-704-1662.
我们为的来的，我们是中国现在 with your gang of two, Dan Su, Michael Olson. And you, I guess that makes us a gang of three when it gets right down to it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are back, and we're going to be talking a little bit about trade because that's been the issue for quite some time, at least since Trump came to office, and whipped up some tariffs that frightened everybody in the world. And we've been kind of talking things down a little bit. But the question is, are we getting anywhere with our talk? Nansu?
Well, actually, now you think about this, we went over this story. China really, they basically dug a hole for Donald Trump. So that's what happened, right? When Trump, what was it was a Victory Day or Victory Day,
Victory
right?
Day, yes.
Or maybe Independence Day, also Victory Day on April 2nd.
I think it was Independence Day.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Independence Day, right? So when he acclaimed tariffs on all the countries and including I think he started like 34% on China. Now quietly in couple days after that, China say they're going to, because the military and civilian importance of rare earths. So they're going to limit the export to those companies, those foreign companies that has permit to to buy rare earths from China. They didn't say this is a part of a retaliation of the tariffs.
They said
And then so outside of these things, they jack up like tariffs, all the way matching whatever Trump is doing on the tariffs, right? So Trump finally reached like some 145%, and with some of them up to 245%. China, reached 125%. Right, and then they got together last month. I think it's April 13, somewhere, that around May 13, around May 13th, the U.S. Trade team, negotiation team, met with Chinese negotiation team under He Lifeng, one of close allies of Xi Jinping in the CCP. As a trade representative from China. So they met together in Geneva. So and both sides we agree. So we're going to lower the tariffs, and then US is going to keep like 10%, and then we're going to both sides are going to delay, for what, 30 days or something like 3 months. I'm sorry,
3 months, 90 days.
Yeah, until the middle of August, right? Now, we're happy, right? Because everything is going back to the normal. But then all of a sudden, what we found out is the limit on rare earths, it's not part of this negotiation.
Ooh.
Because why? Because it has nothing to do with tariffs. uh, Chinese regime basically say we never say you cannot buy it. It has nothing to do with the tariffs. The tariffs is delay, and then you can still buy mid rare earths from us. Anybody can buy, but however, you just need to go through this permit process, and the application for permits could be a day, could be 10 days, it could be 3 months, it could be 10 years, right? So
So,
that's a trap. That's how they dug the hole. So they dug the hole, set a trap, and while nobody's watching, everybody is thinking, oh, everything going
right.
normal. And then they say, no, it's not, because this is not part of the trade war. This is just the concern of China's national security. So you
Okay.
need a permit.
Nansu, have you ever heard a term rope-a-dope?
No.
Ah, well, rope-a-dope came from watching Muhammad Ali, the fighter, fight people.
Uh-huh.
So sometimes what he would do is instead of throwing punches, he'd lean back on the rope and let his opponent throw the punches. And his opponent would throw lots of punches, and the punches would hit Muhammad Ali's arms, or where it's not too vulnerable, and he would just go back in the rope and lean back in the rope, and the rope would pull him forward. So the rope was taking all of the punches, and the opponent was swinging wildly and wearing himself out, throwing punches. So the rope a dope was you just lean back on the ropes and let your opponent wear himself out, throwing punches. Now, it seems to me like the CCP is playing rope a dope with the US.
Right. So then that's how the second negotiation took place in London, right? So it was just like last week, a week ago, about a week ago. Both sides went back to London, and Trump was really happy about the result of a negotiation. Uh, because China say, well, they're going lower they're going to shorten all the rare earth permit application time for approval, right?
But did
So,
they?
but actually, we just found out they still have not allowed any the heavy rare earth that could be used for military purpose. So they say, well, they will low. So basically, they come back. See, this is how the Chinese government do things. They will come back to they will not change the agreement, but they will make a new interpretation about what they have promised. So they come out with a new interpretation of what they promised. They say, "Well, we're going to let all these things that's important rare earths for your, which is important for your auto industry, maybe semiconductor industry, to to go. We'll prove them in a day, or without any delay. We'll prove the permit. You can get them. But however, for those really the heavy rare earth
For the good
ore,
stuff.
the good stuff,
For the good stuff.
we're going to hold them, right? So this is the new
Okay.
interpretation just came out from China. And now think about this. China have the technology. China is the, because of our panda love, because we have not been really careful. China now refining 99.9% of the heavy rare earth ore in the whole world.
Wow. Because are they
So
the only ones that know how, or are they?
it's probably now think about that. We went over this history, this story, right? In 1992, Deng Xiaoping, the second generation communist leader, openly claimed Middle East has oil and we have rare earth. That's how they opened their door to have invite all the foreign countries coming to China, and then to bring the technology as well as the investment, help China to uh,
Sure.
develop its rare earth industry,
And because they sent us pandas,
yeah,
we fell for it.
we fell and we thought that we look at all these pandas, right? We look at the future of China. We Americans look at the pandas and they see the future of China. It's like all these lovely bearish animals, and they fell in love. They are in their wishful thinking that tomorrow China will become a part of a democratic world, right? So now, in 2021, after China really became dominant of the rare earth industry in the world, which basically they produce more than 70% of all the rare earths in the world, and also they refining, more than 90% of rare earths in the world, and more than 99.9% of the heavy rare earths in the world. So in 2021, they make new rules and the regulations. They basically ban all the foreign investments to China's rare earth industry. They don't want your money anymore.
It's
They also banned all the rare earth technology to be shared by any foreign companies.
and that's very interesting, Nansu, because it's really a good illustration of the fact that nobody owns anything, can own anything in China, 在中国, because the CCP owns it all, and
And
that's
that's
that.
it. That's it.
And there's just no. If you go and invest something and think you own 49% of something, forget about it,
Yeah.
because the CCP owns all of it.
Yep. So now so we can see what's really going on. So now our military cannot get all this. Now keep in mind, in the very beginning, back in April, right after the Independence Day of tariffs increase, that China they didn't limit all the rare earth export. They only put the limit on 7 out of 17 different kind of rare earths.
The
You
good
know,
stuff.
the good stuff. The other 10, those light, see, rare earths really have three different levels. You have a light rare earths, heavy rare earths, and the medium weight rare earths. So, we have many of these light rare earths. Even California have a lightweight,
Right?
rare earths industry. But China really put their limit on those mediums to heavy rare earth ore.
They looked into the future and thought, oh, look at this.
Yeah,
Look
yeah,
what we
and
can
then
control.
right, and then that's the result. It's once they if they drag those application time for the export, if they drag that really long, it will basically make some of the auto industry factories close here in the United States. That's why I saw the discussion. Some of the I believe that's a Ford. Some of the factories belong to Ford. They're really even thinking of relocate their whole production line to China, because if once you relocate them to
Right.
China, then
Then
all of a
you have
sudden,
access to
right, you will have access to
right.
those rare earths, right? So that's why, Trump administration, they have to went back to London for the second round negotiation. But now, after like a week, maybe 10 days after the negotiation, their new interpretation came out. They say, wow, all these super heavy rare earths that could be used for military purpose, they're not a part of the negotiation.
No.
So they're not subject to the agreement that was made in London.
So the last time Trump went to negotiate with China, they did the same rope a dope for the best part of his administration.
Well, Trump has it's a master of art of a deal, but but it doesn't matter what kind of a master you are. You cannot deal with someone who doesn't keep their promise.
Right. Where there's no rule of law, and
Right? So you can only, the art of a deal can be only
yeah.
used, with people who honor their words or whatever they sign up for. I mean, they change the story all the time. How are you going to deal with them?
Well, that leads us into your next story, which is about how Chinese firms are moving data in secret to train models on banned Nvidia chips. First of all, what are you talking about? Well, the world of artificial intelligence, computers and chips have to be trained how to think.
Yeah,
And
they have to, those self-study process, right?
yes,
So the self-learning process need to, they need to receive training, and the United States banned export of Nvidia chip to China. So what Chinese have has done is they send their engineer they send the engineer to the countries that not subjected to the ban of any Nvidia chips, and then they went to. I think this time was they went to Malaysia. They sent a group of engineers. I think it's six engineer, or maybe eight of them. I forgot the total number. It's a group of engineer, and each of them each of them brought a big case, and the whole case, uh it's those gigabytes of memory chip. So they have all these they brought the trillions and trillions of gigabyte of memories, and they went to Malaysia, and they ran supercomputers with Nvidia chip inside, and then they have their model. You need to use, they need to have this AI model to be trained by these supercomputers, with Nvidia chip, and they did it. And then after they got their model completely trained, finished learning process, and they store all the data into the memory chip, the trillions and gigabytes of memory chips, and then they took back to China. That's how they
well,
try
wait
to.
a minute. Don't you think they were taking a big risk taking it through Chinese customs? That was a bad joke.
No, of course,
Of course not.
you think about it. These people, they are not the engineers. Technically, they are spies. They are doing the
Yes,
spy activities.
sure.
They're not just going around the regulations. They're basically still the secret, or that's, in the critical field that actually impact the national security of United States and Western world. That's what they're doing. I think personally, why I think it's the U.S. government need to list all these six engineers' names under their wanted list, and these people deserve to be arrested. They need to be sentenced to jail because they are conducting the spy activities.
Well, from what we've also seen this week, Dan Su, it seems like everybody from China is doing the same thing. I'm thinking of the three Chinese postdoctoral fellows at the University of Michigan who smuggled in to the United States the crop killing fungus uh, that was labeled as a bioterror, a potential bioterror weapon.
Hey, Michael, do you still remember how to pronounce that
Fusarium,
fungus?
Fusarium, Germanarium. Yeah, Fusarium germanarium. You could say it, Nansu. Go for it. Fusarium germanarium.
Okay, whatever, I find it so hard. I try
Yeah.
to remember, I will forget them in like 5 minutes. So
So
I,
and
I
and
just
you
call them
have
fungus.
you have all of the students at Stanford, who's Chinese students, whose principal job, it seems to be, is to steal AI secrets from the laboratories that are developing it at Stanford.
Yeah,
It
it
seems
used to
like
be,
everybody.
you have all these American naive guys, I call them useful idiot. They always, saying science and technology are without borders. Those are the, I just don't understand why they're saying this. Because again and again, we
Well, the
need to keep,
Chinese are saying it,
re-
and people are repeating it, and they are the useful idiots.
Yeah, well, this is incredible. So basically, we need to be careful. I think again and again, it's more like it's not a policy issue, but it's a mentality issue. We need to clearly, crystal clear in our mind that CCP is our enemy, not our competitor. One because all this fairness, all this law abiding or in compliance of international rule, all these kind of thinking, they are rooted in the mentality of China. It's our competitor. If you keep thinking China is our competitor, that's how everything else come to play. You're trying to have them become a law-abiding or in compliance of
No,
international rule, fair competition and fair market entrance. All these negotiations, they are all based on the mentality that you assume China is our competitor, but it's not. They're our enemy. You're going to war.
yes.
You know,
Well,
you you
I
cannot
would like
win a
to.
war. You're never going to be able to win a war if you go to a war with a mentality of doing a competition.
I would like to step in with a little argument. I think we are competitors, but I think the competition is not an economic one of business against business. It's an existential competition between warrior and warrior. And like the days of the gladiator,
It's
one
a
of
life and death
life and
situation.
death. This is life
It,
and death
competition.
competition.
It's
Yeah.
a zero-sum game.
Yep.
Basically. So if the CCP dies or we die, or if we allow to see, or we allow, or we don't mind seeing that our future generation become the slave of CCP, that's what's going to happen. You know, we're going to if we lost this. I will say this is a war. I mean, it's the
It is an
unrestricted.
existential war. This
Yeah.
is a fight to the finish.
Yep.
So you either fight or die,
Or become a slave.
okay,
That's
or become a slave. That's the there it
yeah.
is.
Or you become a part of like a Chinese population who are in jail. And
Yeah.
China is a big jail. And you want to become a prisoner of CCP. That's how, then that's the result. If you still thinking we're doing the competition with China, or if you still have the panda love.
There you go. Well, it's my opinion. It's only my opinion that China is not a great country. China is a maximum security prison. I don't want to be in it.
Yeah, today's China. Well,
No.
at the same time, of course, if you go to Taiwan, the Republic of China, that's a
No.
part of free world, right?
Yes.
So you can see,
I should have called it the PRC, the People's
People's Republic of China,
China.
right?
Yeah. Is
So that's why you see it's very hard. Although we keep saying we need to separate the Chinese regime from Chinese people, but we just saying that doesn't work. By just saying that we need to put certain measures to place how we are going to separate them. Because if we're not careful, that's how this fungus is going to come into the United States to destroy our agriculture And
Our
also that's
food.
how we allow the Chinese spies, telling us they're engineers, but they will come to do all these spy activities, to steal in many different ways our technology. Even we ban them from exporting to China, but they still can't get them.
You know, it just struck me, Nansu, that if you take all of these things that we've been talking about and measure them against the strategy of a total unrestricted existential warfare, they all make sense. They all are part of the same thing. The students, the bringing in crop killing fungus to the United States, the diplomats, it all, the companies, they all are part of the same effort to win that existential war.
Yep. It's true. So that's very very important. That's why we always go there. It's like the war means they want to kill us. That's basically what it is.
Yes.
And then and then you have a bunch of people coming to kill you, and you try to tell them, hey, this is whatever you're doing. It's not legal. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They don't care what you're telling them, and they don't care if it's legal or illegal. They just want to kill you.
And they have one objective: to sustain and grow the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party.
They will do whatever
They will do whatever it takes to their own population, and they will do whatever it takes to us and anybody else who gets in their way.
Yeah,
That's
well,
just our
that's very
opinion, right?
important. That's very important. That's why, I think during this tariffs war, that one thing that Trump really underestimate, it's the level of brutality of CCP regime on its own people. They
Yeah.
don't care. They openly saying they can have Chinese population eat grass to survive for 3 years in order to win this trade war. They don't care.
They actually will do that.
Right. So that's the so and however, as American president, as an elected leader, as he need to care about the economy and the constituents.
Yeah.
So that's why you see this tug of war that's going on around tariffs.
Well,
That's why you see how difficult it is.
well, we have a minute left and so much to talk about. Next week, we wonder what will happen to those 3 cargo planes from China that landed in Iran. And by the way, will Donald Trump drop those bunker busters? So those are things we'll have to see whether they happen or not this coming week. This has been China Now with your gang of 2, Nan Su, Michael Olson, and you. I guess it always makes us the gang of 3 when you're with us, and we so appreciate your being with us. Next week, a lot of great stories, because there's always a lot of great stories coming out about the competition, the existential competition between the U.S. and the CCP. Thank you all for tuning in.